This is Marty Owings. We're back here. I'm back with my co-host Andy Fridelis, Capital Conversations, and joining us now on the program is Representative John Kriesel. He's in his first, and should I say last term? You already announced your retirement. Yeah. We hardly knew ye. And you were doing so good.
Well, thank you.
Well, the people, you made a unique addition up here. I mean, you're pretty nonpartisan for this day and age.
Yeah, that our discussion tonight will probably change your opinion.
Well,
that partisan.
Well, it may, but I mean, so that's what we want to talk to you about. The idea that they laid the smackdown on the old Vikings stadium. I heard you this morning talking to Mike Morris and the crew on KFAN, and you were pretty upset about what happened because I think there were promises made. And what happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's for any stadium bill to work, it has to be bipartisan, and it has to have bipartisan support. The TCF Bank Stadium, Target Field, both of those had bipartisan support.
The Wild, yeah,
yeah, and the Wild, and I didn't even look at that one, but the expectation, I think, last night that the Republicans only get it out of the committee, that only one DFL vote was put up.
And that was the bill's co-sponsor. So.
Yeah, and so in a way that doesn't even count. If you sign on as a co-sponsor, you've already cast your vote. And so besides Representative Nelson, nobody else voted in favor of it, not any Minneapolis legislators. And it was just frustrating to watch. I watched it on TV and to hear people on that side of the aisle talk about how they do want to create jobs, how on the House floor, when we have any bill that doesn't involve jobs, they stand up and they're freaking out and yelling, "Where's the jobs bill? Where are the jobs?" And they voted down the biggest jobs bill of the session last night.
Well, let's remark about why the heck that's the biggest jobs bill. It shouldn't be. I mean, there should be a bonding bill getting done at some point, right? But I get your point. It's frustrating. Did you have promises, assurances, John? Did you understand there were people that had said, I should say Representative Kriesel, not John.
I don't care. John works. Knucklehead, anything, I'm fine.
Well, we won't call you that. My wife calls me that most of the time. I already got that one. But did you have was there an understanding that this was going to move out of committee at least?
I wasn't given any promises or guarantees, but I was under the impression, and other people were under the impression, that there was going to be more than one DFL vote put up. And if there was more than one DFL vote, there were other people that were willing to hop over and vote yes.
So for the public that's watching out there, Andy, and I know there's people on the issue on the side of the issue we've heard from that, it's why should we give the $1 billion owner? That's kind of the tired argument that's been put forward, because the package that's out there now, that what's being discussed, isn't a subsidy to build a stadium for $1 billion owner. Talk about the components that would have been to the public good on this, well, your understanding.
That's the biggest thing, is that we're essentially having Ziggy Wilf and the ownership group of the Minnesota Vikings pay for half of the operating costs and construction costs of a stadium over a period of 30 years. Over that 30 years, all but 10 days per year, the stadium is operated and owned by the public. So, even during the 10 days, we would own it. And so it's for the greater good of the community, for our high schools, for our amateur sports leagues to be there. It's something that would make Minneapolis-St. Paul a bigger draw than it is now. It would continue to bring people and dollars from out of the state in here. And that's, people act like we'd be giving Ziggy Wilf and the ownership group a bunch of money. Here you go. Spend this on whatever you want. And that's not the case.
So now this would have been on the site next to where the Metrodome is now, right? And Minneapolis Mayor R.T. Ryback got his majority of city council members to go along with his proposal. So, and you said Minneapolis legislators did not vote for it. So who didn't do their job? Was it Ryback didn't, work with his legislators, or where do you think the thing fell apart?
Well, I don't want to say anybody didn't do their job, because everybody has their personal beliefs and reasons. And I heard Representative Winkler today say numerous times on the radio and to people that, and he's Golden Valley, so he's not directly Minneapolis, but that touches Minneapolis, and it would affect his constituents. That his constituents don't want it, he doesn't believe in it, and that's his own prerogative. Personally, from my point of view, being a Cottage Grove representative, I don't see how something that helps Minneapolis so much can be opposed by people in Minneapolis. Not by people, but by the representatives, where they say out of one side of their mouth that we do want to create these jobs and we want to help our city, but we don't want to build a Viking stadium. So I don't know where the disconnect is. I don't really have an answer for you. It's very frustrating, though. I wish I understood.
So being from Cottage Grove, would you be in favor of a statewide tax, sales tax?
A statewide tax, you know, I'm not in favor of a tax that would be on people that don't directly benefit from the stadium. I do think it's a statewide cultural asset, and I wouldn't personally have large opposition to a penny per cocktail at a bar or something that you don't need, something that, hey, I go out for beers with my Army buddies and stuff once or twice a week. Yeah, and you know, I can afford a penny or two per beer. That sort of thing I'd be up for, but I don't think a sales tax that would go directly to fund a Viking stadium. For people way up in Mahnomen, Minnesota, Thief River Falls, where they like to watch it, but they're not really getting an economic impact or an economic benefit directly from the stadium like the people of Minneapolis would get.
Well, I wanted to ask you about this, Representative Kriesel. You know, I've heard people go so far as to call the Vikings a cultural state asset.
Yeah, I've said that multiple times.
Right, well, I'm calling you out on that. Really? A cultural asset?
Absolutely.
Like this building or... Really? Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, they're a sports franchise, right, at the end of the day?
And
so, yeah, I'm going to give you a chance to tell me why.
You can finish if you want your question. Okay.
No, I'm not done.
Very passionate about this, if you can tell.
Yeah.
The issue I have, okay, we talk about art is a big culture. We teach it in our schools, art and music and all of that. So
Haven't we defunded all that by now?
I don't think so. I don't know.
I'm sending a lot of
being
money
blamed about it.
I'm not blaming.
Of course, they're asking you for money all the time. They need more.
That's right.
So that's something that we consider a cultural asset, right? Okay, my kids take art in school, whatever.
Yeah.
We don't go to musicals or anything like that. Once in a while, we'll go to a Christmas play or whatever, and that's neat. But every Sunday, we watch football games. We watch the Vikings. I have the Sunday ticket, so we watch other games after the Vikings game. That's what we do. That's how I bond with my kids. During halftime, we would go out and throw the football. To me, that's a cultural asset, and I think that's more on par with the average Minnesotan compared to some of the other stuff that we're paying for. And I think it's a little bit unfair that because it's a sport, and a barbaric one at that, which is part of the reason I think it has its draw, that it's looked at as something, the bowl bounty situation. It's looked at sort of it's not on par with the other arts.
It is pretty popular.
Now, are the links a cultural asset?
I believe so, absolutely. And they're not ratings.
It seemed like she was trying to box you right
Yeah, of course.
Well, I mean, as a sport, I think that okay, yes, I'm going to put it out there that I bet there are a lot of people who are fans of the Vikings who would not probably consider the Lynx a cultural asset. But I think if you make that argument, you have to make...
Absolutely, and I 100% agree with you when it comes to that.
Yeah.
It may not be the most popular sports franchise in the state, the Lynx, but they are a sports franchise. They had a big draw. They won a WNBA title last year.
More than the Vikings.
More than the rest of our teams except the Twins.
Bring back Bud Grant, please.
Right. So it's a situation where we built the Twins a stadium. We built the Gophers. The Timberwolves are probably in line to get theirs. And the Vikings have been very patient. We owe it to them and the people of Minnesota to get it done.
Yeah. Well, a couple other things I wanted to ask you about before you left, not Vikings related, but just about you in general. Now that you've sort of liberated yourself from the political, I don't know that you were that deep into it to begin with. It didn't seem like it.
No.
You weren't. There was a couple of fellas here last session. I'm just going to call the two of them out because they're not here. Well, Biskins is leaving and Emmer's gone. They hated going to caucus for whatever reasons they had. But you know, it's like a he said, she said. We're going to do this. We're going to do. What did you think of the caucus experience while you were here? Did it fail your expectations? Would you walk into this place thinking suddenly people are elevated to a new sense of being and interest in the public? And
no, I mean you
came eyes wide open.
Yeah, I was willing to accept whatever, and the only thing I really was annoyed about the whole caucus experience was being in caucus and having to hear the arguments twice, hearing it in there and then on the House floor. It's like watching the same show over twice.
Right.
And so, you know, it's the way it is. It's the way it is, and I enjoyed that aspect of it, kind of the teamwork kind of thing, helping each other out. you know, I've got your back, you've got mine, sort of a military thing on a much smaller level, but
Right.
no, it was all right.
What did you like least about your experiences here in the last 2 years? And
Like one instance.
well, just in general. I mean, is there any? Oh, can you pick any one thing?
Well,
or,
the
yeah.
marriage amendment situation was by far the most frustrating, the most heartbreaking. I'll never forget that
pretty
day as long as
outspoken about
yeah,
that.
and walking outside after that vote and seeing the looks on the faces that it affected.
Well, you and I probably both served with people who, in your era, they might have been openly gay. I don't know, but in
Yeah.
mine, they weren't.
I didn't know any
openly
personally,
gay,
but
I served with soldiers who were, and they bled just like the rest of
absolutely, and that's what it comes down to. So that was frustrating. You know, other things, there was frustrations where, you know, sort of coming from a military background where everybody does what's right, no matter what the consequences are, no matter what they're risking, you know, up to and including their life. And again, this is an extreme example, but then coming here, and there's a lot of great people here, but there is a cluster of people that only care about themselves and their political career. And so that's a tough adjustment for me to make,
Yeah.
and to really trust a lot of people down here. It took a while.
Politics, John.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Well, and what were your really good experiences? What did you really think helped? What surprised you in a good way?
I think just every day walking in here, seeing this place. I remember being here as a kid, getting a tour of it, and finally the day I realized that I'm a state representative and I have a say. People email with problems and even stuff that really isn't within the job description. Being able to help them cut through some red tape. So many people have helped me that it feels good to be able to give back, even if it's a little bit.
So what's next for you?
I don't know. I'm going to continue my job working for the National Guard. Always up for new things, but the focus is going to be spending time with my kids, getting their baseball swings and throwing motions under control, and being a good husband and a good dad.
Are you done with politics for good?
I won't say for sure that I'm done for good, but I'm looking forward to a vacation from it.
Yeah. When you talk about public servants, do you think that's been lost to a certain extent, that people, representatives or people that are elected to office, don't realize that they're supposed to be public servants, not public masters? Because I hear people complain about that. Arnie Carlson sat in that chair last week and said he thinks that your party and the other party have lost touch with that.
I think there's some of that in each party, and that's just and those are the ones you hear from. You always hear from the extremes and the loudest and the squeaky wheel, you know.
Yeah.
But I've met so many great people down here that sacrifice a lot. This job doesn't pay a lot at all. And for me, I said how hard it was on my family. I live 15 minutes from here. I still, when I'd get home, even if it was late, I'd peek in and give my kids a kiss on the forehead or whatever. There's people, they don't get to see their families all week. And sometimes they can't go home for the weekend because there's stuff going on here. So there's people that sacrifice a great deal for money that people think we get paid a lot and we don't.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's lost it. There's people that are trying to get rid of the whole public service aspect to it, but there's enough good people here to make sure that doesn't happen.
So you feel
That's
like
optimistic.
Yeah, you're pretty. You haven't been here long enough. That's the pessimism hasn't worn off. But any final thoughts about your experiences up here? What you've learned, what you'll take with you in life? You learned when you were in the military and probably before that, but obviously this has been an experience for you. Has it settled in yet? Do you think you?
I think the biggest thing I've learned is just to have an open mind. In the past, I really haven't. I've always been stubborn. And coming down here, I've learned that, we really go at each other on the floor sometimes and have arguments in committee, whatever. And in the hallways, you can chat and be friends. And kind of the civility I think I've learned. I think I've become a better person since I've been down here. I've learned to listen to the other side. Even if I know from the start I disagree with it, maybe I learned something and I learned to understand where they're coming from, even if I disagree. And so that's been the biggest takeaway from here, I think.
Seems pretty cool.
I've enjoyed it. I'm glad I've got to do it.
I think you're not saying completely what you're going to be doing. So you'll get home and be able to take care of the kids, but there's a little slot open for you on the morning program over at the Fan. Have they mentioned it to you yet?
I will keep being a contributor on KFAN.
Now that Kerry Noble's been moved out.
Right, that's right.
There's a slot for you.
Friday morning slot.
Kriesel around town.
We'll talk to him. Yeah, that'd be fun. I love those guys. They're good friends of mine, and
They're awesome.
I want to keep contributing as much as I can.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure to finally get to sit down with
Thank you very
Representative
much.
Kriesel.
Thank
Wish
you.
you the best of luck,
bet.
and yeah, it's been awesome to get to know you.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's it for tonight's program. Join us next week when we have a couple more legislators on to talk about the session and when it will hopefully wrap up. And I'm sure any pressing issues will be, there's always something up here.
We'll
isn't
be
there?
right on top of it.
We'll be on top of it. We cover it like a blanket. All right, good night for us at the Capitol. I want to say thank you to our guests, Senator John Marty and Senator Sean Nino, for joining us earlier, Representative John Kriesel. Also want to take a time to thank our production staff, production assistants Susan Miracle and Connor Malloy, and our producers Catherine Loudenslager and Matt Ealing. Also for my co-host Andy Friedel, I'm Marty Owings. So long, everybody.
Good night.